Where I went to college changed the trajectory of my life. It became so important to me to help students find that same pathway. Students are willing to open up to me because of my own willingness to talk about my failures or to talk about the fact that the first college that I went to was not the right fit for me. And then I transferred, changed my entire life.
Welcome to People at Pyramid, a weekly podcast that introduces you to your fellow Pyramid Club members. My name is Vince Quinn, the Content Studio Director, and I'm here to showcase the stories of your fellow members, explore the ways that they can help you and your network, and make it easy for you to connect. With that, let's meet our next member. If you could introduce yourself to the members.
Absolutely, Vince. My name is Micki McMillan. I've been a member of the Pyramid Club just since February. So I'm really excited to meet people and get involved. And I am a college admissions expert with Empowerly College Counseling. So support students and families in that path to college admissions.
Okay, and what does that look like?
It looks like a lot of things, right? And so it looks totally different if we're starting fall of your senior year than if we're starting fall of your freshman year. So I think more than anything, I would say if you want it to look and feel good, then the earlier you start, the better. It takes a lot of pressure off. But essentially, I meet students and families where they're at. So sometimes I've worked with students and they're like, here, I've already started my personal statement. I need you to edit it. And that's kind of what I do with students. But then most of my students, it's literally soup to nuts from the very beginning, right? So this idea of what classes should I be taking throughout high school? How can I get involved in a way that's meaningful and speaks to my passions and what I think maybe my career goals might be or where I want to go to school? And then we work through that process.
Yeah, I could have used you so badly. I was the most unmotivated, sack of garbage student. I was so bad. I was so disruptive because I just couldn't find that passion. I couldn't connect with anything. And I always just felt like I'm going to have to find it after school, like once I get out in the real world somewhere. So to know that you're giving this kind of guidance to people in such a real way and getting them to the kinds of places that they can really embrace it and feel directly connected to the work, I think is huge.
Yes, and they've made the choice, right? So again, because it's this journey of self-discovery, I always like to say, again, the schools we get into, that's the icing on the cake, it's the cherry on top. But it's the process, right, that the student goes through of self-discovery and growth that is really the most important thing, because the hope is that when they cross the threshold, right, and they matriculate at their college, that they're feeling really good and secure and confident with the choices that they made.
Yeah. And so for you, I mean, talking about choices that you made, this was a more of a transition for you to get to this spot, correct?
It was. I mean, I am a lifelong educator. I was a teacher for 23 years at elite independent boarding schools. I taught English and theater. So natural connection there to college admissions. Certainly, I was helping my English students. I was teaching essay writing. I had an essay writing boot camp in the summertime called Write Yourself Right. But as the theater teacher, our college office didn't really know how to support students in that journey if they wanted to go to a performance-based program. So I functioned as a liaison there. When I pivoted from teaching, when I decided to pivot from teaching right after the pandemic, I'm sure no one will be surprised at that. I then actually started my own college consultancy. So I had a boutique consultancy based in Bucks County. That was all going very well. I was working part-time for Empowerly. And then when I realized all the things, all the ways in which I can help my students through Empowerly's data-driven approach, their teams of experts, as opposed to me as just one person, I kind of folded my whole business into Empowerly.
Yeah. Well, good for you. I mean, to be able to help people and do that from a business standpoint, I know it's hard for teachers these days. I mean, it's a tough place to be, and to be able to have a good spot where you can help all these kids and guide these kids. I mean, it's just incredible. So what I would love to do, though, to follow up a little bit more, because you're talking so much about helping these kids build their voice and really understand what their story is, so they can get into these universities. So how do you begin that process in terms of building a connection with these students and helping them realize what their story is?
Absolutely. And of course it's tough, right? And we're fully remote. So I work even if a student was down the street from me, which I've actually had students like that before. I'm happy to meet them in person, but typically we're working remotely. So, there's always so that I think there's an additional layer, right, of separation there when you're kind of talking through a screen. But so, I mean, it's really clearly, again, the earlier we can start, the more time it gives me to really get to know a student, for me to really guide a student to finding those passions that they're interested in. But I mean, students like to be talked to like adults, you know? And I think sometimes we make a mistake of whether it's putting too much pressure on them immediately or assuming that they're not capable of certain things. You know, I treat my students like adults and I talk to them that way. And it really goes a long way in building trust and opening up those, communication pathways.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense because if you're in your tone sort of saying, yeah, like by, well, can you possibly do that? Like, yeah, they'll feel babied. When people have talked to me like that, I always resented that feeling.
Absolutely, and you have to lead with curiosity, right? I mean, I think we all know that we don't get a whole lot of success. We're walking kicking the door in, right? And walking through and saying, "I'm here and this is what we're gonna do." So really taking the time to ask the student, "What are your thoughts? What are your fears? What do you think is gonna be major roadblocks for you in this, process? What are you excited about? What kinds of things have you done that might aid us in writing your story?" And so it's asking a lot of questions. It's leading with curiosity. It's being authentic and genuinely interested in what these students are saying. And then really, the rest of it flows from there.
Yeah, and I think that is so vital, and you see that on the business side too, right? Because I talk to so many people, coaches, consultants, like people who are the business, and they build this thing on a passion. Like they have a life that they've dedicated to this certain thing, and they found it where they get to do what they love every day and help people, and that's their business. That's such a cool place to be. But once that comes together, they go, oh, well, I don't want to talk about my success. Like it feels wrong, it feels icky, it's uncomfortable, and like that you can literally see people shrink into themselves a little bit. And so how do you get somebody to have that confidence in like this is my story and I am comfortable to
I mean,
tell
it's
it?
a great question, and I feel like I wanna add in here that I think the reason I mean, it makes sense with my background, education, and the ways in which I work with students that college advising would be a natural progression, but what it really was is where I went to college changed the trajectory of my life in such tangible, ways that it became so important to me to help students find that same pathway. So again, I think a lot of times students are willing to open up to me because of my own willingness to talk about my failures or the ways that I tripped up along the way or to talk about the fact that the first college that I went to was not the right fit for me and then I transferred and again changed my entire life, changed my whole trajectory. So I think it's allowing yourself to be vulnerable when talking with students, opening up, talking about the ways in which again you flubbed your own journey, right? But it turned out okay. And really again that vulnerability is really allows students to be vulnerable themselves.
Yeah, it's really important, and you really can't understate how much literally everybody up on the planet has screwed up everything at some point, right? Like we all mess up constantly, and it's just sure when people get to these big stages, it's always like they had this success and this success and this success, and those are easy things to sell, but they had 50 things they failed at to get to that point. Different ideas of I'm going to try this or I'm going to try that or I want to do this or maybe that. And eventually, through that trial and error, now you found your home. And I think that's the same thing with finding that career path or that scholastic path that you want to take. It's like, what kind of work do I want to do? Is it this field? Is it that field? Am I more analytical? Do I like doing more physical things? Like, there's just so many. You can do anything. It's such a big world, and you have to be willing to try stuff and fail at stuff to get.
Yeah, and a couple things with that, right? This idea that that's why we want students to start early because their college career should look like a funnel, right? So in the very beginning, ninth and 10th grade, it should be wide. Students should be trying everything. They should be figuring out what their passions are, getting involved in the things that interest them. And then what colleges are looking for as students move through their journey is something called thread development. So we're looking for that funnel to narrow into 11th and 12th grade. So now we see this student has formed an interest and how are they digging deeper into that interest? How are they elevating their experience with with that interest. And then the other thing I wanted to say was, I don't think, I think every success I've found came from a failure initially, right? And so, letting kids know that it's okay to fail. Like, go out and try all of these things when you're young, when you're in the beginning of your journey, because then it becomes less of a failure thing and it becomes, there's a positive spin on it. It's like, I'm going to try all these things and I'm just going to get rid of the things that don't work for me or I don't like, as opposed to kind of being late in the game and saying, oh, I want to major in business, I better join DECA, right? And then having it not be a great experience for you. So
100%. So, okay, now you've had the ability to help all of these people get in all these great positions where they can go to the schools that they want and start building the lives that they want. And so, for anybody who is a member that maybe is a parent and has kids, what are some tips and tricks that you would have for parents in that situation?
again, start early, like start, because I think the more that we can normalize this conversation and that it just becomes, because it does involve the whole family, right? Typically, mom and dad are footing the bill for college, right? Everybody has to deal with that student and what they're going through as they're going through the application process. So the earlier that families start normalizing this conversation, if their students do want to go to college, the more it alleviates anxiety and the more it can be a family thing that you do together, as opposed to, the student's so afraid that the parent is going to tell them they're not doing enough or this, that, and the other thing when we start later. So starting early absolutely would be the first thing. Do your homework, right? Like, do, like, colleges, you can do virtual tours. You can do, webinar panels. You don't have to show up at a school in order to learn about a school. So, if your student thinks that they have some already some interest in specific colleges or interest in some specific programs, start to explore those early. So again, it becomes a normal part of your academic preparation and foundation, as opposed to something that lives separate and it's only the thing that can happen second semester of junior year.
Yeah. Okay. I love all of that. So if you need to rewind, go do it. Okay. Plenty of wisdom there. So now I want to change gears a little bit though, because I asked some questions before we sat down. And one of the things that I noticed here that you sent me is in all caps with maybe 8 exclamation points, go birds.
Go
So,
birds!
so,
Go birds!
so big Eagles fan.
Oh my goodness, lifelong, born into it. My dad was a nut and he has passed, so I think it's become even more important to my family to celebrate. I did have season tickets for one season that I split with a friend. She ended up having to use them for her business, but I did live that dream for one season. And I would say that I am fortunate enough to probably go to about 4 or 5 games a season just with friends. And one of my favorite stories, Vince, was we were in Disney World last year and we were online for the Avatar ride and single game tickets went on sale. So there's no reception in this cave. If anyone's been on this ride, you know what it's like. And I'm in the cave, like standing on top of the railing with my phone held up really high to try to get reception. But I got those single game tickets, Vince.
Great work.
Yes, thank you.
That's great work. That's the kind of commitment that the birds need. So love to see that.
Actually, one of my first memories of the Pyramid Club when I first joined, because I joined in February, and then of course won the Super Bowl and had the parade. So was able to use this as home base, to see the parade in person, but also come up and watch all the speeches on TV. So it was really nice to have the Pyramid Club right here for that.
There you go. You can't beat the location.
Absolutely.
It's really good. All right. Well, Micki, so for anybody that wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
So, I mean, I think I don't even know if there's a way for us to get in touch with each other.
So
Through the Pyramid Club?
we'll have some notes in the description for the episode. So anybody that's listening, we can put some links in or whatever, phone number, whatever you need. What would you
I
prefer?
mean, I would say the best way to get in touch with me, because I live in this inbox, is my work email, which is Micki, MICKI at Empowerly, EMPOWERLY.com.
Great. So we'll have that in the show notes. So if you're looking right now, hit the description, go email Micki. So Micki, thank you for joining us.
This has been so wonderful. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about something that I love so much and that I'm so passionate about. And it's really great to be getting involved here at the Pyramid Club.